Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we're jumping into something many of you asked about, crime scene investigation.
And forensic science, yeah. We're going to look at how clues actually become, well, evidence that solves crimes.
Exactly. Consider this your quick guide, your shortcut to understanding how it all works, from the flashing lights to the lab results.
It really starts the moment police arrive, doesn't it? That initial response is just so critical.
You mean like keeping people out, securing the scene?
Absolutely.
Right.
That's priority number one, stop anything from being disturbed or contaminated. Think of, say, a robbery scene.
Right.
First officers tape it off, nobody in or out who shouldn't be. Then, immediately, documentation starts.
Okay, what kind of documentation?
Well, photos are key. Lots of them. Overall views, close-ups, everything.
Capturing it visually.
Yes. And sketches, too. They give you that spatial context, where things are in relation to each other, distances, positions.
Things photos might not show clearly on their own.
Exactly. And detailed notes, logging every single observation. Even things that seem minor at the time can become important later.
So it's about preserving that scene perfectly as it was found.
Precisely. Create that baseline record. Only after all that documentation is locked down does evidence collection really begin.
And that's not just bagging things up, is it? I imagine it's pretty meticulous.
Oh, extremely. Different evidence needs different handling. Take fingerprints, for instance.
Latent prints, the invisible ones.
You might use special powders or chemicals to make them visible, then carefully lift them with tape.
Okay.
Biological stuff, like, say, blood or saliva, that goes into sterile containers. You have to protect the DNA.
Right, DNA is crucial. What about larger items, like a weapon?
Documented in situ, first photographed, sketched, then collected. Each item gets its own packaging, its own label. Very systematic.
And there's that whole process for tracking it, isn't there?
The chain of custody, yes, absolutely vital.
Why is that so important?
Well, imagine the evidence moving from the scene to the police station, then to the lab. Every single transfer needs to be logged.
Who handled it, when, where it went?
Exactly. It creates an unbroken trail. It proves the evidence hasn't been tampered with or, mixed up or lost.
Which is essential for court, I assume.
Absolutely essential. If there's a gap in that chain, the evidence could be challenged, maybe even thrown out. Integrity is everything.
Okay, so the evidence, carefully collected, documented, tracked, finally arrives at the forensic lab. What goes on behind those doors?
That's where the deep science happens. We have specialists for different types of evidence.
Like DNA analysis.
Right. If there's a biological sample, they'll extract the DNA profile, then they can compare it, maybe to a suspect, or run it through databases to look for a match.
And the fingerprints collected earlier.
Those go to fingerprint examiners. They look for those unique patterns, the loops, swirls, arches, and the tiny details, the minutia, to make an identification.
What about really small stuff? Trace evidence.
Yeah, things like microscopic fibers from clothing, or maybe a single hair. They compare these under powerful microscopes. It can link a suspect to a scene or a victim.
And you also hear about ballistics.
Ballistics experts look at firearms evidence. They can match bullets or cartridge cases back to a specific gun, or figure out bullet trajectories to understand how a shooting happened.
Wow. And toxicology, is that for poisons?
Poisons, yes, but also drugs, alcohol. They test blood or tissue samples to see if any substances played a role in the event. It helps build the full picture.
So all these different experts, they do their analysis, and then what? They just send back results.
They compile everything into detailed scientific reports. Very objective, based purely on their findings.
And investigators take these reports.
Yes, and combine them with everything else. They have witness interviews, other leads, surveillance footage, you name it.
To piece together the puzzle.
Exactly. To reconstruct the events, identify who was involved, maybe understand why the motive.
And ultimately, this forensic evidence often ends up being presented in court.
It often forms the backbone of the prosecution's case, or sometimes the defense's case too. It provides that objective scientific element.
It can be incredibly powerful in securing a conviction and hopefully delivering justice.
Definitely. Juries tend to put a lot of weight on scientific evidence, assuming it's been collected and analyzed properly, of course. That chain of custody we talked about, crucial again here.
It's really quite something, isn't it? This whole intricate web of careful procedures, specialized science, all focused on uncovering the truth from sometimes the tiniest detail.
It truly is a hidden world of evidence, really.
Makes you think, doesn't it? About the dedication involved, but also maybe about how much we rely on this science in our justice system. What are the implications, the questions that raises for how society views truth and proof?
Definitely food for thought.
Indeed. Well, thanks for diving deep with us into the world of forensics today.